Welcome to 20 Minutes of Clarity. I'm your host, Jason Noble, and today with me I have Andy the Man Merchant. We're going to be diving into a crucial topic for anyone looking to protect their wealth, wills and trusts. We'll explore these legal instruments, how they work, and how they're an essential component to any comprehensive financial plan. As always, please subscribe below if you like the content, hit a like button, or even go to clearpicturefinancial.com so that you can scroll down, look at other content that we have, even enter your information if you want to get your process started. So Andy, this is such an important topic, and I think every topic we do bring within our podcast is important. Now, is it timely to the listeners? Well, it depends on whenever they're listening to this. But wills and trusts seems to be a part of the conversation that we have with everyone that we have going through the Clear Picture Wealth Program. It's that crucial. So,
yeah.
I'll turn it over to you to kind of get us started going into the conversation, and then I'll ask you some questions as we move forward.
Yeah. Well, no, it is the crucial part of the Clear Picture Wealth Program when it comes to wealth and lifestyle protection. And why is that? Is because everybody should and can do it. And everybody needs to have a discussion. And if you have any wealth at all, you need to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, then there's a lot of cost that gets lost. There's a lot of lost family harmony and other factors. So just do it, right? I mean, there's so many inexpensive ways to just put a baseline topic. If you're listening and you're viewing this today and you have kids, it is so important to have some documentation in place around who would take care of your kids, because you can't control tomorrow. You can only control now. And why not start with controlling this very simple estate document that everybody should put in place, regardless of how much money they have, how much wealth they've created at this point. So no, I'm excited to jump into it and see if we can't provide some simplicity around what action and what people should do next.
Well, let's give a peace of mind to everybody right now. If you don't have a will or a trust, it's okay. And the reason why it's okay is because the state that you live in is going to decide what happens to your finances and to your children. And then not only that, it just leaves the people that you love behind. They're going to decide who's taking care of your children. They'll come to a reasonable conclusion. Everything will be smooth and easy, or maybe not. And the reason why we could say, or maybe not, is because we, Andy and I, other financial professionals, we see the aftermath of when this is not done properly.
Yeah.
And so, Andy, obviously what I'm getting at is if you don't want to take the time, you don't want to take the resources to decide what happens to your wealth and to your loved ones when you're no longer with us, just so you know, the government will take care of that for you. And most of the people that I work with, and I'm just going to now say all, it's a very few time in my career I could say all, they don't want that to happen. They rather make that decision. Now, so Andy, share with us a story when you came across someone who did not take the actions, did not take the steps to create a proper estate plan. What were the ramifications? Well,
this is the reason I got into the business, Jason, was because of estate planning. So most people would have said, well, why didn't you become an estate attorney? And the reality is I have a lot of estate buddies that are out there, and people just don't want to talk to attorneys, right? And advisors don't bring it to the business. So the story is that, I got in this because most people don't think they're going to die, right? They don't want to realize that it's a tough conversation to have. But in my personal situation that I went through, I had a close client of mine who, did not do any estate planning. They had unique assets, out there, land or real estate and some other factor, which is fine. But it was a blended family. So, obviously there's two parts. There's two different sets of families. There's two different estate plans or wishes in that. And here's the solution. The solution was, let's just not do anything. Right. Well, what ended up happening in that solution is that one of the individuals ended up getting cancer and passed away very quickly from it. The estate plan was done at bedside, which is not the place to do it, in order just to sure up wishes and wills at the point in time. But what it ended up doing is that all of those wishes that they would have had more in a normal mindset would have been there. Instead, what happened is that this family ended up having massive disruption in family harmony. There is a ton of wealth that is being just thrown out the window because no decisions are being made. And everybody's just living to that rules that were set during that moment of just, I'm dying, I need to do something instead of proactively planning. And so it disrupted this great estate and this great family wealth accumulation. It didn't matter how much advice or guidance I could have given them on the investments that they could have been put into, how to manage their assets more appropriately, how to protect all their income, protect all that wealth, build that wealth, just to let it just crumble because nobody wanted to spend 2 hours to do an estate document while they were proactively planning. So that's my story. And I feel like the big thing I want to cover today, Jason, for those that are listening and viewing, is that we really just need to help people identify the difference, of when is it, the difference between a will and a trust? When are they being used? I think that's a common, kind of not misunderstood topic or concept. And here we're trying to simplify it. So that's really where I want to dive into. But that's my story. That's why I got in this business, and that's why this is so passionate to me.
There was a study done in April 2022 by CNBC where 67% of Americans do not have an estate plan. So, what I'm asking everyone right now is forward this on to those that you care about so that you don't have to deliver the message of the importance. You can allow us to do that for you and go, hey, check out this podcast. Take 20 minutes. Learn something about the importance of having a will and a trust. And that survey went a little bit deeper. They were saying 40% of the time of the respondents to the survey said they never just got around to it. Really, it goes right back to your point. Just take a few hours out of your hectic, busy lives and then get this done. And you could even streamline this with the tools and resources that we have that Andy and I provide our clients so that you can make this a better, smoother experience, not just for you, but then anyone else that's going to be involved. And the other thing that they were talking about is like, well, I don't feel like I have enough assets. Well, it just goes into, it's not just assets. It's also, do you have any children and things of that nature? I mean, an estate planning attorney here in Charleston, they even will draw up a pet trust. They'll even, like, for their pets. And it just goes into making sure that things are going to still be taken care of based off of your wishes when you're no longer with us. So let's get into what you wanted to talk about. Yeah. Andy says to me, Jason, we're going to talk about the differences between wills and trusts and their importance and what happens if you don't. You've already heard what happens if you don't. We're not going to beat that anymore, maybe a little bit, but let's continue on. What is the difference between a will and a trust, Andy?
Yeah, no, I love what you even said there too, Jason. I think it's an important message for everybody listening and viewing to hear is that it's not a matter of size of assets. It's a matter of you need to have a document in place to just direct your wishes, right? And if you own assets that are beneficiary designated, that's easy, right? Because you've already done your estate planning through that, but you still own houses, you still own bank accounts, and they all need rules on there. So what I wanted to hit is really the 5 key reasons why you need to have an estate plan. You need it for asset, distribution or management. So a will is going to just direct people, right, Jason, to how to distribute their assets. If you're looking for more of a management of those assets, right, we sometimes refer to that as managing from the grave or having some control, and I'll hit some examples here in a bit, then you're going to want to think about a trust because it's more of about managing those assets versus distribution. The second one, right, Jason, that I know we talk a lot about is probate. Now, probate is just the court costs that are involved with deciding how your assets are going to get transferred over to whomever at your passing. Now, if you do a will and a trust or a will, that's great. You've got your direction that simplifies it, but your assets in most states some are going to be different, but you're going to have to probably probate those assets to the court just to notify. Now, here's the thing, Jason, that most people don't know in this is that if you are a resident, say of Kansas, and you own land in South Carolina, right, there's different estate rules and laws that you may have to build in. So you make sure that you look at your property holistically or your assets holistically and where it's physically owned, because that may change your estate plan. So, but anyway, it's probate's going to be required through a will. That's still the difference. You can simplify through proper designation. It's going to, hey, here's the document. Here's my wishes. There they go. If you're going to do it through a trust, you avoid probate altogether. Way easier. Some people think about, man, it's expensive. I got to set up my will and trust. think about it that way, is that you can avoid all those after passing costs that would be burdened by your family. The last three I want to hit on quickly is the flexibility. Many people get nervous when you start talking legal documents. It feels binding. It feels like, just locking you in. Wills can be updated, a little bit of cost. You can amend them. Your trust can also, they're flexible. You can always change those. We actually recommend to our clients that we work through is that we review those every 2 or 3 years or major life events, right? So you have a grandchild, a son or daughter gets married. Those are life events that need to have these documents updated. Don't just do them and then forget them. They have to build with you. Last two is taxes. If you have a will or a trust, it kind of is what it is. There's no real advanced tax planning that's involved. A trust can be. There's some advanced planning that needs to go in place. But tax planning, if it's projected to have a larger estate value, those are for the higher net worth ones, then we definitely want to look at a trust versus a will, because you can actually do some advanced tax planning there. And then lastly, Jason, I'm from a town that's still big enough that everybody knows your name. Maybe it's like the Cheers story. You don't want to be at the corner, but privacy. If you live in a community where you don't want all your laundry aired to the community, you got to think about it. A will, public knowledge. A trust, it all kept private. So if any one of those 5 things are like, man, those are important to me, then you need to know the difference. That's where we help people. If you go to with any one of our advisors, if you go to clearpicturefinancial.com, right, Jason, we sit down and help our clients determine which makes the most sense. And putting our money where our mouth is. I mean, you could speak to this a little bit, but we even went out and purchased a partnership or built a partnership with a trust and will document group that we can actually create those in our offices for our clients today. So we don't even have to say, hey, go talk to an attorney and never happen. But additional conversation there, but that's really the key differences. What do you want to add?
Like I want to add more clarity. So when we're talking will versus trust, the trust we're talking about is revocable living trust. There's many other different types of trust. That could be a whole meeting in itself, a whole podcast in itself, the different types of trust. So when you're hearing Andy and I talk about trust, just know the legal term, the full term is revocable living trust. Okay. There's other rules and regulations for other different types of trust. There's also a thing called tenants trust, Andy, and it's also known as a poor man's trust. It's the beneficiaries that you could add to accounts. So think about your bank account. You could add a TOD or POD, paid on debt, transfer on debt designation. That money will then avoid probate, and that money will be liquid, available for the beneficiaries. And it doesn't even go through probate. It doesn't go through the trust because the beneficiaries on the accounts supersede both of those documents. Same thing with your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, things of that nature. You can add beneficiaries. You can add primary, contingent, even tertiary beneficiaries on those accounts. And if you have a child that's under the age of 18, if you have a grandchild under the age of 18 that's going to receive this, you could even add a guardian towards that account for that one particular child. Now, understand that once they hit the age of majority, then they have to take certain action. That would be something that would be discussed by the financial advisor or by the lawyer at that time. Right? But these are the things that are coming into play when I'm talking with clients going, hey, should you look at doing a will versus a trust? Well, let's look at the pros and cons of both. And if the majority of the money is inside of IRAs, let's say, we could add beneficiaries. We could add beneficiaries to the account, to those accounts, and we could do a will-based plan on the house. Yep. Now, if they have, to your point, real estate in multiple states, they have a vacation home or they have rental property, well, automatically we're looking at a trust-based plan. It's almost automatically, and it's due to every state has their own probate laws. And we want to make sure that we have a trust and we put the homes under that trust to avoid those intrastate estate taxes and intrastate estate probate. Because, Florida, even like something like a timeshare, you got a timeshare in Florida, they're going to charge you out of state estate taxes in Florida to settle that timeshare for it to be passed on to the beneficiary that doesn't want your timeshare, right?
Yeah.
And they're just going like, oh my gosh, we got to pay more money out of the estate to settle this estate process and fee. And then you got to get a lawyer in that state, as you also got to get a lawyer in the state that you reside in. So it just adds up into overall the cost.
Yeah.
That could be avoided quite a bit by doing a trust and having that lawyer be able to then settle that estate at the time of passing. So as you could tell, like we're getting a little bit more granular. Before we go even deeper, Andy, can you do me a favor? Can you just real quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's what those 5 are.
Asset protection, okay, probate management, flexibility. That's why you want it. Taxes and privacy.
There it is. All right.
Come up with an acronym so we know what it is.
That'll be something that we could work on off screen. We'll come up with an acronym for like those 5.
Yeah. The only thing I want to add too, while you're saying that, Jason, we're going to dive into the granular, is that either the other part of this is this component, we might dive into it, is having a financial and a healthcare power of attorney, both which are defined in those documents. But those are very important things that I think we'll probably address here in the next few minutes.
Yeah, well, let's just go into it. So if you just have a will or if you just have a trust, you're not done. You have to have a durable power of attorney and a medical directive or a healthcare proxy. Those things are so super important because you don't want to have pillow talk with your spouse for 30, 40 years saying, hey, if I ever get in this state, just pull the plug and clean the room with a vacuum, right? and then it comes down to it, and that's not in a legal document. There could be issues that arise from that. And I had that happen with one of my clients. I was 24 years old, and I kept on discussing with them the importance of getting an estate plan. The one thing I didn't do, Andy, and I wish I did, is pick them up and drive them to an attorney's office. That was the one thing I didn't do. Mm-hmm. Well, he ended up having a stroke, and he was in a vegetative state, and they had Hippocratic oath. They had to keep on doing measurements to keep him alive, even though that's not what he wanted. And his wife even said that he didn't have the legal document. And his wife of 35 years wanted to go ahead and do not resuscitate. That was the instruction that she gave. The 3 children said that she was under distress, and they fought that order. They fought it, and it tied up in the court system. 3 years went by. He finally did pass away. But over those 3 years, it divided the family. Mm-hmm. Not only that, the hospital made a lot of money, and so did the lawyers. Then the state made a lot of money. Back then, the state that they were in, the state of Ohio, had a state estate tax. They made a lot of money. All this could have been avoided if I just, and I'm saying this with humility in my heart, like if I just would have picked them up and brought them. Yeah. But wait, when you're having meetings every 3 to 4 months and you're saying, hey, this hasn't happened yet. When are we going to get this done? Right? Like, I didn't know tomorrow's newspaper. I didn't know that he was going to have this awful stroke and create this whole thing, but in hindsight, now what I do in that memory is I make sure that I have this conversation with every single every single person that I serve, because I don't want to have that awful feeling ever again that I failed to do my job as a professional because the person didn't see the importance of this. This is why we want you to take action today and schedule a meeting with a qualified attorney, or even forward this on to someone that you know that needs to do it, and now they could hear from 2 qualified professionals about the importance of doing this. Andy, as we wrapping up, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we go ahead and let them get back to their busy schedules?
No, I think that last story summarized it. If you want to protect your wealth, if you want to protect your family, if you want to simplify, your family's wealth, take the first step, make this a priority of your plan. If you haven't reviewed it, your estate documents, if you have one in place, like awesome, you get bonus points there. But if you haven't reviewed it in the last, 2 or 3 years, if you've had a major life event, definitely review it there. If you haven't done this, I'm telling you, make this your first priority of the year. And if you need help, that's where we can come in. But no, I think you summarized it really good there at that final story there, Jason.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media for more financial tips and updates. And until next time, just stay informed and stay secure. This has been 20 Minutes of Clarity with Jason Noble and Andy Merchant. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode.